Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about something a little different. So, I think everybody, or at least most people, have that one game that they spent a lot of time in growing up or, in their early adulthood. A lot of people, it was probably World of Warcraft for a generation of people. For me, that game was Warhammer Online. I was in my late 20s when that came out, mid to late 20s when that was around. So it was a different time in my life, but that game I played from when it started, beta, to when it shut down in 2013. It ran from 2008 to 2013. It was it's my favorite game of all time. During those years, I pretty much played nothing but it. I also ran a blog back when blogs were a thing, and at the beginning of this YouTube channel, if you go back and look, there's a lot of Warhammer Online videos. So that's actually what really got my channel started, was taking video, and it was rough back then taking video. Like, I just had a regular IDE hard drive, a regular spinning hard drive, and trying to run fraps at the same time I was playing the game and getting a decent frame rate was difficult. I actually bought an SSD back then, a small one, because they were pretty expensive, which gave me great frame rate and stuff, because I could write to that instead. So, it was a great time. This is before social media, though. So I ended up finding out about Warhammer Online kind of in a roundabout way. Like, I had played some World of Warcraft. It was okay. I was much more used to text-based mushes and muds and stuff. Warcraft was all right. I had some coworkers who played it, so I played it a bit. And then I was at Target one day, and I saw Lord of the Rings Online. I was like, hey, this looks pretty cool. And I remember reading the back of it, and they were talking about this thing called Monster Play. Like, in Warcraft, I was never interested in PvP. In Lord of the Rings, they had this thing called Monster Play, where you could take your character into the moors. That's the area. It's like, it's very Dark Age of Camelot inspired, which is something I just was never able to get into at the right time. But you could take your player character into there, or you could take control of a bad guy class, and there's a progression system there. So I ended up being a warg, which is like the wolf from Lord of the Rings, the wolf thing. And, I really loved the PvP in that. I ended up, totally just playing PvP in Lord of the Rings Online, which is kind of sad because it's a PvE game at its heart. And the PvP part, while nice and fun, it was never the focus. And eventually, that became pretty clear to me that, this was, a side game for Lord of the Rings Online. And it was not going to get many additions. It got some updates, but, it was never the focus. So that got me looking at, all right, is there a game like this where I can just level and progress with PvP out there? And I guess, I forget, I guess I was Googling around, and I remember coming across a post, it might have been in Lord of the Rings forums, where someone was like, oh, there's this new game called Warhammer Online coming out that's realm versus realm focused. Made by the same people who did Dark Age of Camelot, so PvP is going to be a big thing. So I went and looked at that, and, that was really my first introduction to Warhammer at all, and I loved it. I loved I loved what I saw with the lore. The Dwarven Engineer spoke to me for some reason. I don't know why, but the class, there were going to be 24 classes. Well, 20 at launch, if I remember correctly. They did introduce 2 classes in 2 additional kind of events as the game went on. But so they introduced 4 total after that. But there are 20 different classes. You could level completely by PvP. It was a kind of traditional MMO kind of system. This was exactly what I was looking for at that time. Exactly. So I started, really paying attention to that. This was probably about a year before launch, maybe plus or minus a couple months. And, I started to get involved with the community. I spun up the blog, where'sblog.com. It still exists out there. I haven't updated it in years. It's a blogger blog, but it's there. And, blogging was still a good avenue of community back then. YouTube was very new still, and social media was very new. I don't think many people were using it at that time. So I started doing blogs, started reaching out to other bloggers, started doing videos. It was a lot of fun. And on a more personal note, this was during a really tough time in my life. My wife and I were having medical issues with having children and things like that. And I was extremely anxious because my wife is pregnant. And the last one didn't work out, which was an extremely difficult time. And I was extremely nervous about this one. And Warhammer provided a great outlet for these, not an outlet, but a distraction. And that's what games are great for. So instead of obsessing about what could go wrong, I was able to focus some of that energy into Warhammer Online. And, it worked very well. The week before Warhammer Online went live, my oldest daughter was born. It was a little, bad timing because I was a little busy during launch, but I managed to get on and play a little bit during launch. But it was always a good memory. So, the same, within a week, I had my daughter, and then the game that I was looking forward to launched. And, it was just turned into a very happy time. So as the game progressed, I played it constantly and still kept up doing YouTube videos. And I did mostly, YouTube was kind of young then. And I did a lot of patch coverage. So when there was a new patch on the public test server, I'd show things off. And, it was still new. I kind of wish I went all in on it and kept doing it because who knows where I'd be now. But I can't complain. And eventually, led to me being invited down to Mythic Entertainment. They were in Virginia at the time. I'm up in Pennsylvania, so it's a quick drive down. I got to go to the offices, get a tour, see some things, meet some great people. Actually had that happen twice and met other people in the community and great bunch of guys and girls. I think actually there's only a few. Most of the community people were guys at that time. But I met a lot of developers, some who I still talk to today. They've moved on, obviously, since Mythic is no longer in business. But, that time was just amazing. Sadly, the game didn't go so well. I mean, it was up for 5 years. That's a long time to play a game. Of course, some Warcraft is still around. A bunch of games are still around. I just don't think it ever really recovered because it didn't launch in a great way. I mean, the early content was good and solid. Just the end game was not, it wasn't fully baked. And the way they had planned it, I don't think the players played it the same way. So it went through several revisions, and they spent a lot of time kind of trying to revise existing content and never got to expand it the way they wanted to. That's my guess. I could be completely wrong. I know they had some amazing plans, but, with the player base started getting smaller, there were eventually layoffs, and it was just that spiral. And eventually, 5 years later, they had to call it a day. Now, I can't complain. I had a great time with that game. A lot of fun. So it was five great years. They eventually tried to kind of save things with Wrath of Heroes, which I actually liked Wrath of Heroes. It was a lobby-based game based off of Warhammer. It's hard to explain. There's probably videos out there. But I think it was ahead of its time. I think today Wrath of Heroes would do much better than it did back then. Because this was like when League of Legends was starting to get popular and things like that. I think it would do much better today. where MMOs are not as popular and lobby-based games are much more popular. It wasn't a bad game at all, I don't think. I wish that time was spent back into Warhammer Online, but I was not involved in the business end, and my future and paycheck was not at stake, so it's easy for me to say that. So yeah, what you're seeing on screen now is not Warhammer Online. It is called Return of Reckoning. It is a fan project. It is actually very cool. It's really amazing what the people who made this game have done. So I've been having an interesting time playing it again. It's hard to go back just because, I played it for 5 years, and this project, the kind of goal was to get it where it was when it went to sunset. So it's not, they do some new stuff, but that it still has that great feeling of PvP leveling. And I haven't found a game since that kind of does that as a MMO. I know a lot of Eastern MMOs you probably can do that, but I never liked that art style. Warhammer Online was kind of the perfect game for me because I liked the art style, and it had PvP leveling with MMO kind of tab targeting and hotkeys and things like that. It wasn't like an action MMO and things like that because I'm not very dexterous. I don't know, however you say that. So it's very cool. There's a link in the description. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this walk down memory lane. Warhammer Online. You were the best game best online game I've ever played, and probably ever will play, since that's all subjective. I don't ever see myself getting as enthralled with a game for years like I did with you. It was a perfect game for that time. Now I'm older and have too many other things to do, so putting in a lot of time just isn't possible. Thanks to all the people who made that game, who may be watching this video. I loved it. I had so much fun. It was a great game. So I'll end it there. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next video.